What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast, the podcast where we talk about a rich man while we're still poor. Patrick Mahomes signed a huge mega deal yesterday, for those of you that didn't know. And oh my God, I'm depressed in many different ways as a Broncos fan, as just a poor person. And the fact that I have to see this man for possibly 12 years. You never know what happens with the NFL. I mean, injuries, that he could somehow drop off of a cliff. You never know. Get into cocaine, live this wild lifestyle, and just drive himself out of the league. These are all things that could happen. We've seen crazier things happen, but we want to thank you for tuning in, whether you're finding us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Overcast, or Radio Public. Thanks for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter if you'd like, at Brandon_Stoll for Brandon, at Stephen Priest Jr. for myself. But a lot to get to today. Obviously, we'll talk about Patrick Mahomes' new deal. What does that mean for the Broncos? And for the Broncos fans that had it in their minds that this was going to screw over their cap, yeah, you're going to have to think again about that one because the Chiefs were smart on this contract, which is not a good thing for Denver or the rest of the AFC West as well. Tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary of something huge. Very huge, depending on what side of the fence you're on. You either hate it or you love it. At the time, I hated it. At the time, Brandon loved it. So we'll get to that as well. And then, of course, we'll talk about the NBA. A couple teams had to shut down their facilities because of some positive tests. One star player in the NBA will not participate in the restart. So that's going to be interesting. And a Broncos Ring of Fame member was added today, a legendary coach. We'll get to all that. But let's start with the huge news that rocked the sports world yesterday. Patrick Mahomes, new deal. What is it? It can be up to $503 million, 12 years technically, but it was a 10-year extension for just over $450 million if you just talk about the extension. Huge deal for the Chiefs. I mean, I have no words for this. Remember when you wanted to trade him and then the Chiefs were like, no, we're going to sign him to a 10-year extension. But a huge deal. What were your initial thoughts on the deal yesterday when you saw that?
Great for the Chiefs, but why sign a 10-year deal if you're Mahomes? And look, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Like it's the biggest sports contract in American sports history. Like it's massive. But I think it was a great deal for the Chiefs because you get him for obviously 10 years, and the percentage of what he takes of the cap is low, at least compared to other players or other contracts that they could have done. It's actually, I think I saw something where it's like 18 to 20% of the cap, which actually isn't that bad. But here's the thing. There's a reason why LeBron James didn't sign a 10-year deal with the Heat. There's a reason why he never signed a deal bigger than 4 years, let alone actually 3 years. I don't think he ever signed a deal bigger than, I think the Heat deal was a 4-year deal. And that was the biggest deal that he made. Why? Because the cap goes up. Money goes up. You can make more money later on. Obviously, he signed those short-term deals for other reasons too, to be able to move and do what he needs to do. But money goes up, and 10 years ago, what was the biggest contract that a quarterback had signed? Not that much. I mean, 2011, I believe, was when Aaron Rodgers signed his deal, and it was maybe like $20 million a year, something like that. So in 5 years, because he's making an average of what through those 10 years, because he's not getting into this money for the next 2 years, right? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So through the 10 years, he can get up to $50 million a year, basically, if you average that out, right? I don't know what the incentives are, but let's just say he gets all of them, whatever. $500 million or $50 million a year. That's a lot, but in 5, 6, 7 years, is he still gonna be is he still going to be the top paid quarterback in the league?
No.
No. So he could have signed a 5-year, $250 million deal. And then right when that ends, he probably would have been able to sign a 5-year, $350 million deal, $450 million deal. So we don't know how much the money is going to go up. Now but here's the other. I was thinking about all this in the car because that's when I heard the news. I was driving, and I'm like, why would you sign this 10-year deal? Well, maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe he knows, and maybe his agent did some digging, and maybe he knows we won't have an NFL season this year. Because if that happens, then the cap will go down. Salaries will go down. Things will happen where the NFL is going to lose a lot of money, so they're going to kind of have to restart. And the cap, maybe it doesn't go down, but it doesn't go up as much as it could have if they did have an NFL season. So maybe then at that point, the 10-year deal is smart. So, I mean, I don't really know, but my first reaction was, great for Kansas City. You just got super lucky. And this allows them, maybe not in the short term, but in the long term, to be able to go out and get, sign guys to help him win. And, I mean, maybe Mahomes doesn't care about that. But, I mean, it helps Kansas City out in the long term. For Mahomes, I mean, if you want the money, why sign a 10-year deal? Why, if you want to get the max amount of money possible, like guys like LeBron has done in the past, I don't really know why you would sign a 10-year deal.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Bill Barnwell outlined in his ESPN piece today, where he really broke down this contract all the way through. And for anybody that wants the details and all this stuff, I would suggest you go to ESPN and check it out. And he says here on Mahomes' deal, if he had signed a 4-year, $160 million extension, he would have made $187.6 million over the next 6 seasons, which would be slightly more than he'll make through the first 6 years of his new deal. He then would have been set up for free agency after the 2025 season, which would have likely forced the Chiefs to negotiate again in 2023 or 24 as the new TV money hits. The final 6 years of this new deal amounts to $294.2 million without any significant upfront guarantee remaining. Mahomes would likely do better than that if he were negotiating a year away from free agency or on the franchise tag in 24 or 25. So it sounds like, from Mahomes' perspective, he could have done better. He could have done better. He left some things on the table. Yeah, he left some things on the table. However, Bill Barnwell did go through and look at it. Was it a win for both sides? Was it a win for just one side? And he says here, Mahomes and the Chiefs can generally feel good about this deal. He and his representation wanted to come away with something that blew away the typical quarterback contract. The numbers on this deal aren't figures we talk about when it comes to even the best players. Nobody in league history has earned more than Eli Manning's $252.3 million contract. Mahomes obviously just signed for something that can double that much money over the next 10 years. So it's a win for both sides. I mean, listen, he's going to make a lot of money regardless. Okay. Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if people think that Patrick Mahomes got screwed over, okay, well, screw me over like this. Like, screw me over so hard like this that I get this much money. If that's screwing me over, fine. I will take that. I'll take half of that, what he's getting. I'll take a third. I'll just take 500,000, 100,000. I'll take any of that. But listen, I think you raise a good point. Why did he want to do a 10-year deal? It's a good question to ask. Honestly, I think for him, it wasn't all about the money. I think he wanted money, yes, for sure, but he realizes he's arguably the best player in the game right now. This also does not screw over their cap space, which again, Broncos fans, I saw a lot of this on Twitter yesterday, and I tried to argue this. This is going to screw over their cap. Oh, they won't be able to sign Chris Jones. Not so fast. He goes into that in this article as well. They spread it out over periods of time. So that's why for him, and this is smarter, I forgot who said it yesterday, but this is smarter than anything Tom Brady did. He took contracts that were obviously team friendly, but he didn't take it over an extended period of time to where he was going to get good money, but also allow for the cap to be massaged and allow for teams or guys to come play with Patrick Mahomes. And I tried to argue this yesterday. They still have Tyreek Hill under contract until 23. They still have Kelsey under contract until 22. They have Tyrann Mathieu under contract, I believe, until 22 as well. So that's at least 2 years right there with those current stars that you have locked into place, with the biggest one under contract. If those guys were to happen to leave, if winning isn't priority anymore, okay, yeah, it would suck to lose those guys, but people are going to go want to come play with Mahomes on a discounted deal. It's the Peyton Manning effect. It's the Tom Brady effect. Guys are going to want to play with this guy. So at the end of the day, the Chiefs aren't going to be hurting for the next decade or 12 years. What really comes down to is, can they draft well to build the team around him? Because you can only spend so much in free agency. Now it's really key for this team to hit in the draft year in, year out, and that's going to be hard because we see it with the Patriots, for example, too. Even though they've created this dynasty or had this dynasty for such a long time, if you go through and look at their draft picks, it's not very good. And one of the reasons because of that is they're picking at 30, 31, 32 every single year. You're not getting top 5, top 10 talent there. It's unlikely. So at the end of the day, it's a win for Mahomes. It's a win for the Chiefs. They get arguably the best player in the league under a arguably a team friendly deal. And if you're the Chiefs, you feel great about this because, and I'm trying to find the quote from Bill Barnwell on this, but it was something to the effect of, the Chiefs can feel happy about this because they signed a Hall of Fame player, or excuse me, a player on a Hall of Fame track. Here it is, right here. From the Chiefs' perspective, they lock in a guy who's on a Hall of Fame track for about as long as they want. They do so without destroying their cap or making a huge upfront payment out of their coffers, whatever that means. In fact, this deal barely changes their short-term cap situation. Mahomes' cap hit over the next 2 seasons before the extension were set at $5.3 million in 20 and $24.8 million in 21, and they'll virtually be identical after this deal. By keeping their cap obligations for Mahomes relatively low in years to come, the Chiefs might be able to make another signing before the July 15th deadline. Hint, hint, Chris Jones. So there you go. It's a win for everybody in Kansas City, and it's a huge L for the AFC West directly, and really for the rest of the AFC and the rest of the league. Good luck trying to get through this team in the AFC Championship game, and good luck trying to get through this team in the Super Bowl. Hence the 49ers.
I think the way Kansas City did this, and the way Mahomes, and look, was someone in Mahomes' camp probably telling him, hey, you can get more money if you sign a shorter term deal? Yeah, probably. He's not. They're not stupid. They know. They know that they probably could have made more money. Mm-hmm. But again, look at what New England has done over the years, and what Brady has done, taking less money to win. And if that's really all you care about, you're gonna get paid no matter what. You're gonna get the biggest contract in American sports history, at least with just the size of it, the 10-year, because I believe the next one was 10 years, 426, 423, something like that. And that was Mike Trout, right?
Yes.
So, you get that, and, on the surface, it's a massive deal. And look, you get your money, and at that point, what's another $100 million when you're making $500 million over 10 years, right? So, but yeah, like you said, it's all up to their drafting ability, and they gotta hope that guys will want to go and play there on a smaller contract because it's Mahomes. And we saw it here in Denver. I mean, of all people to understand how that works, and how people who should understand how that works are Denver fans, because they lived it. In the 2014 offseason, I believe, the 2014 offseason, they went out and signed DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, TJ Ward. The next season, they brought in Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in that same 2014 offseason, they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. How do you think they had all that money to sign all those guys at that time? Where did that money come from? Talib's deal was pretty big. But other than that, the rest of the guys took less money to play with Peyton.
Mhm.
And that was the whole thing. They want to win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. Emmanuel Sanders came to Denver because he was sick of not having a quarterback. Well, he had Ben Roethlisberger, but sick of not getting the touches that he wanted to get, and so he thought, well, why not go to the best quarterback in the league, or at that time the best quarterback in the league, who's coming off of throwing 50 or 55 touchdowns in a season. So it's it that's what gets you free agents, is that guy. And people want to credit John Elway and all that. It was Peyton. It was all Peyton. And so the Chiefs will be able to do that for the next, and that's not even talking about the next 2 years. That's for the next 5 to 10 years. The next 2 years, they're set.
Mhm.
Because they don't have, like you said, they don't have to pay Mahomes really anything for the next 2 years. They can easily, as long as they stay healthy, they will. As long as I'll say it, as long as they stay healthy, they will win the next 2 Super Bowls, and they will three-peat, and they will become the first NFL team to three-peat.
I wouldn't be shocked to see it. I mean, they have the guy, and obviously it's hard to just outscore teams. You need some semblance of defense, but we saw their defense that wasn't a strong point early in the season last year get better and play well in the Super Bowl. They have the guy that can carry them there, and it's very rare that he has a bad game. And they also have the most dynamic weapon in the NFL, and that's Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Because all it takes, if you miss him once when you're trying to press him, that's 40 yards on your head. That's a touchdown. And we saw that in the Super Bowl.
Right.
The Chiefs had nothing going on until that one long shot to Tyreek Hill, and that completely changed the game. So, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. If you're a Broncos fan, today or yesterday was not a good day. I don't think you should have any hope of trying to win the division. And I tried to tell this to Broncos fans on Twitter. Listen, you can't run from this guy or this team. He's going to be here for the next decade or 12 years. At least you have to assume that he'll be here. And now, obviously, injuries happen. We've seen crazy things happen in sports.
Mm.
Dynasties don't always, the Patriots are an anomaly. Dynasties don't always last like we think they do. Look at
Right.
the Warriors. Everyone thought it was going to be this prolonged thing. It felt like that, but it was only what, 3-4 years,
Yeah.
in that time
Look at
frame.
the
So
Seahawks.
exactly. Everybody thought that was going to be a dynasty. Yes, they went to 2 Super Bowls, but shortly after that fell apart. Like I mentioned, this puts so much pressure on their front office to hit and find hidden gems in the draft. Because eventually, yes, you won't be able to keep everybody once that new deal kicks in. Now it'll be friendlier. They'll have space to work with, but Tyreek Hill's going to get older. Travis Kelsey's. How are you going to replace these guys
Mm-hmm.
for the short term? Yeah, this really sucks. In the long term, 3, 4, 5 years from now, okay, the Chiefs are going to be a good team, but will they be a dominant team? That's what we have to wait and see. But if you're a Broncos fan, listen, you're not going to be able to just run from this team. You're going to have to go through them, and you really need Drew Lock to be that guy. You really need Drew Lock to be that guy, and you really need John Elway on his last 2 years of his deal to set this team up for success in the long term, because they're going to need it. And same with the rest of the AFC West.
Yeah, and I think I look, how old is Travis Kelsey and Tyreek
I
Hill?
believe Kelsey is 29. Tyreek, I think, is in his mid to late 20s as well. I'll double check that real quick.
So if Travis Kelsey is 29, I think with tight ends, he probably has another 6 years in him. And I think they will do everything that they can to re-sign him. I don't think he leaves. So he's there. In my mind, he's there for another 6 years. I mean, how old was Tony Gonzalez when he retired?
Right.
And he was still putting in really good years with Atlanta. So Travis Kelsey still got time. As long as again, it's all about health, and it's all about those injuries. If he gets a serious injury, this all of a sudden this season, then he won't last very long. So
Okay, Kelsey is 30 years old. He'll be
okay.
31 actually in October, on October 5th. Tyreek Hill, he just barely turned 26, so he's smack dab in the middle of his prime. So he'll get at least another contract, you would think, with the Chiefs
So I would
once that ends.
say Travis Kelsey has another at least 5 years. I'm curious how long Tony Gonzalez played. But let's just say, for the heck of it, Kelsey gets another 10 years, or 6 years, and then Tyreek Hill gets another. If he's 26, I would say. I mean, he relies on speed. I would say probably another 5 years, 5 or 6 years. So they pretty much have the same amount of time. So as far as being able to find other weapons for them, I think it's just so easy. It really, it's not. It's not like trying to find another quarterback. It's not like trying to find a replacing a pass rusher like Von Miller, right? Where you can get. Like, here's the thing for the Broncos. What if KJ Hamler does turn out to be the next, Tyreek Hill type of player? Well, they drafted him in the second round, so the Chiefs can easily replace someone like that over the next. And I'm saying over the next 5 years. If you give it one offseason to replace that guy, it's a little harder. But you got 5 years to replace that guy. So start to draft those guys. Look what Pittsburgh has done over the years. They had Hines Ward, then they move on to Antonio Brown. They had Emmanuel Sanders on that team. Like they always had guys. And they just drafted those guys. They know what to look for. So if Kansas City if they know what to look for, they'll be just fine. At least for the weapons offensively. And Mahomes will make anyone better. He'll make whatever receiver they draft next better. And I mean, they have Hartman, who is another speed guy, So it's not like, and Tyreek Hill missed a few games, and they did just fine without him. So I don't think you need him, obviously, because he's a difference maker, like we saw in the Super Bowl. But as far as having to replace these guys and in the future, 6 years from now, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think that's what they're really worried about. I think it's the defense. And you have to be able to continue to draft well defensively. And you need the defensive coordinators. You need the defensive coaches. You need all of that to go. It doesn't need to go good. It just needs to go fine. Like, just be an average defense. Just be at, the 15th, 16th ranked defense, and you're fine. But I think that's harder than, finding new weapons for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, look at Brady. They found weapons, all the time for him. And he made them into weapons. So I don't think that's a concern. I think it's more of you got to make sure that you have the defense for Mahomes. And if you look at all the Super Bowls and all the times that the Patriots got there, they had a top 5, top 10 defense. So that's the concern that I have for Kansas City. But hey, you're not paying Mahomes 30-40% of the cap. So you can go out and sign guys if you need to. Guys will take less money. Like the Broncos. they built one of the greatest defenses of all time within 2 years. So it's not as hard as I think people make it out to be. I think Seattle tried to hold on to their guys, and they didn't draft well, but they also didn't go out and try to take advantage of having Russell Wilson and signing guys for cheaper deals. I don't know. I don't really know why Seattle couldn't do that. But it's possible. You can do it. And like Peyton was taking up 20% of Denver's cap in 2014, 2015. They were just fine. So Kansas City will be fine. Tony Gonzalez played till he's 37. So, I mean, at least.
And another guy too, Jason Witten. He's still playing. He's 38.
Yeah.
So
and it's not like Tony Gonzalez fell off a cliff. In his final year at 37 years old, he had 83 catches for 859 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think Travis Kelce can play another 6-7 years easily.
Yeah. And like you said, they're set up. They're going to be fine. So again, Broncos fans, and really, if you're a Raiders fan, if you're a Chargers fan, this is just the new reality. And this is what it was like in a short, condensed period of time for other teams to play Peyton Manning, for other teams to play John Elway. This is just what it's like. This is what the AFC East experienced for what felt probably like an eternity, facing
Yeah.
Tom Brady. This is just their time to have this guy, and you just have to find a way to build it. And now it's on not only John Elway these next 2 seasons after this year, or however long his contract is, and the next GM or whoever takes over for Denver to draft well, to get guys in here, and you have to. I'm building my team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs because that's right now the top
Okay, well then
of
how do you beat
the
them?
table. Well, that's the thing. Do you want to go the outscore them route, or do you want to go the defense route? At the end of the day, what is the saying? Defense wins championships. What have we seen constantly? And if you look at the Super Bowl history, the best offenses versus the best defenses, whenever they match up in a Super Bowl, the edge goes to the best defense for whatever reason. And we've seen it go both ways here. We saw the 2013 Broncos get completely ramrodded and destroyed in the Super Bowl. And we saw that hellacious offense of Carolina Panthers that was record setting in itself get completely manhandled by that defense of the Broncos. I'm going defense. That's just me. I don't know why it works like that, why the best defenses seem to just control the best offenses. And we forget, too, the 49ers had that game won. They were completely obliterating the Chiefs in that game, but Jimmy Garoppolo can't hit freaking, what's the tight end's name that they have in San Francisco? Why am I spacing on his name? Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle.
Can't hit him on a third down and get an easy 10 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo completely froze up in that game and just couldn't do anything, which, shocker. I mean, there's a reason probably why the Patriots didn't want to keep him. Now you see it. Now you might have overpaid for that guy. And all it took was one play for Mahomes to get there. I'm not trying to go the route of outscoring that guy because I don't think you're going to find an offense that can keep up with them time after time. I mean, look at Houston. I mean, they couldn't keep up. And they had a 27-point spot on those guys, or however much it was. Baltimore. I mean, these teams, like, yes, you can try and outscore them. I just think that's the more dangerous game. I'd rather play defense and maybe you find one game. All you need is one game. And if you can stop them or slow them down for one game, like San Francisco had them slowed down for 3 quarters, that's all you need.
I'll say I think this is different though, and I think Patrick Mahomes is a little bit different. Could the 2015 Super Bowl team for the Broncos, would they have beat this team?
Oh, I think they would have gave the Chiefs a run for their money. Now, do I trust that 2015 offense to do something? That's the difference.
Right. So that's my point. That's my point.
But
so
I guarantee
I don't think they win. I don't think they beat the Chiefs. And
as an overall team, no.
We saw them that essentially that defense. I mean, it wasn't as good, but I mean, 2 years ago when Mahomes is going off and having his 50 touchdown season, his MVP season, they could not get him on the ground. They could not stop him. He literally threw a left-handed pass for a first down. So I think this guy is just a little bit different. And
I think that if you're just looking at that defense versus that offense, I think that the Broncos would have a chance.
Maybe
because that team had it all.
Maybe, but
each level
what's
they had
the
it
common thing between all these great defensive teams? Their offense stinks. Look at the Baltimore team. Their offense wasn't very good.
That San Fran offense didn't stink. They just couldn't get anything going when they needed it most.
Their passing game stunk. They could run the ball, sure, but I mean, I think you can stack a box and you can stop the run. So, and that's what Kansas City did. They went one-on-one, or they played some zone, and they made sure that they stopped the run.
They forced Jimmy G to try and beat them, and he couldn't.
So, I think you need the perfect mix. I don't think you need a team that can score the way Kansas City can, because you need Patrick Mahomes to do that, and there's only one of those guys. So you can't just outscore them. You can't ignore your defense and just say, screw it, we're going to outscore them. That's not going to work. You can't have, I don't think, a all-time, like a 2015 Broncos team could beat this Kansas City team, because you need some resemblance of an offense. A little bit. You need something. And at that point, I don't think they had that. Um, the reason why they were able to beat that Carolina team, I mean, if you remember that Super Bowl, the offense didn't do any. They scored one touchdown? I'm pretty sure, right, or two?
Yeah, it was one. I believe one, or maybe
It
two.
was
It
two,
might have
but
been
that
two.
second one was at the very very end to
Yeah,
pretty
it
much
was
seal the
CJ.
deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was the run game, and I don't think Carolina's defense was really that good, and I don't
I
think
mean, that
they
was a
were.
top five
It
defense
was
that
a
year.
top five defense, but
They were really good.
well, but I think the way Denver's offense was able to play, it was they couldn't really that defense couldn't use their strengths. I remember talking about that game, and we were on air and we were breaking it down. I didn't see any way that they could really do anything, or at least hold them to 10 points or whatever, because of CJ. So there was differences in that game. I think you need, and what Denver is doing, funny enough, I think is what's gonna work, is what has to work, is you spend all your money on defense and you go all out on your defense in that sense, but you have to make sure you draft the perfect offense. So if Drew Lock ends up being a top 5 candidate for MVP, like some people are thinking, say he does that, and KJ Hamler works out, Jerry Jeudy is great, Sutton is great, Noah Fant is great, all of that, and all of it's clicking. Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay are working. Everything's clicking on that offense, and they're scoring 30-plus points per game. On the other side, that defense has to be a top 5 defense. And I think they can be a top 5 defense. They have been over the past couple of years, as far as they've been close to getting to that point. If they just had an offense, they probably would have been at that point. So you have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. Those two need to play great. You need a couple other pass rushers to stand out. I guess the question is your secondary with your corners. That's a big concern, but you have the safeties. So if their defense is a top 5 defense and your offense is a top 10, top 5 offense, that's how you have to beat Kansas City. You cannot beat them with the top or second best offense and a bottom 20 defense. You cannot beat them with the best defense in the league and maybe one of the best defenses of all time and a crap offense. You have to have it balanced. So what Denver is doing right now, that can work, but you're still waiting on Drew Lock a little bit, so they're not going to be able to beat them. But now is the perfect time. Like, for example, the Baltimore team. Right now you have the advantage of you don't have to pay Lamar Jackson. Go draft, do everything you can to get him the weapons. But make sure you spend all your money and all your time on the defensive end, so that way you can build up that defense. So that way you're in the top 5 or I would say top 5 on each side. If you can be on the top 5 on each side, you have a chance. That's what you have to do. And one thing that Baltimore can do is they can run the ball. So I think that's the best shot. That's in the league, that's the best shot. Tampa Bay is interesting because you do have a top 5 defense. You have Shaq Barrett, who can get sacks. I think you need someone opposite of him, though, or at least a committee behind him that can go out and get sacks as well. But I think they've actually quietly built a pretty good defense, and I think they were a top 15 defense, I want to say, right? Last year, they might have been. If they can continue to add on to that, I mean, the defense gave up a lot of points because freaking Winston threw 30 picks. So I think they're actually kind of built to do so in a sense. I don't think they're as close, but you also have Brady. So, and you have the weapons that Brady has now is ridiculous. So I don't know. I think we're kind of on a collision course with it being Baltimore, Kansas City in the AFC Championship and Tampa Bay and Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Can one of those teams who, in my mind, are built to beat Kansas City, if you can be top 5 on both on defense and offense, if that doesn't work, then honestly I have no idea what's gonna work.
It's just the only thing, and I agree with your premise. Like, ideally, yes, you'd want the best balanced team to do that, but that's why we see teams that are more lopsided because it's just easier to get
Right,
teams
but
that
that's
are
not going to
better
beat
on one
Kansas City.
side.
That's not. We
I mean,
saw
it
no,
might.
because what was San Fran's defense rated last season? Were they the best?
I'll check.
If they were the best, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. Was their defense as good as the 2015 Broncos? No, not
Did you think
necessarily.
that the best defense was going to beat that 2013 Broncos offense? No, I didn't
Well,
think any defense could stop them. That nobody did because they set records. They were the best statistical offense in NFL history. Nobody could have saw what came for that team,
right.
and nobody
No,
could have
did
saw what
not.
the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl until the fourth quarter.
We did not expect a 43-8 score. But I think that Seattle team was just that defense was built so perfectly to beat that offense. But here's the
And so is San Fran's team.
but
They were built
it's crazy.
perfectly.
It's crazy that I'm saying this, but Peyton Manning is not Patrick Mahomes. There's a difference. There's a massive difference. And at that time too, with Peyton, who was 36 or whatever, it's not the same thing. And I get they broke a lot of records and the weapons on the difference I think is that Denver team had all the weapons in the world to give Peyton, who was still great, but that team had all the weapons in the world to give him. And that's why they broke all those records, because they were four, not just three receiver deep, they were four receiver deep because they had Caldwell and they had a tight end. And they had Wes Welker, who was a Pro Bowl guy, an all-pro guy. They had Eric Decker, who was a Pro Bowl guy. DT, a Pro Bowl guy, an all-pro guy. Julius Thomas, who is a Pro Bowl guy. So you had the weapons all around him. He was surrounded. You had a running back in Hillman and Moreno. That you had a solid duo there. They weren't great, but they were something. So he had more weapons than Mahomes has. He did. If you look at the amount of weapons, honestly, if you gave Mahomes those weapons, he would have thrown for 60. He would have thrown for 65. He would have shattered every single record in the record book. Mahomes is just different. And you see it you see it while you're watching him. His ability to move, his ability to just his arm strength in general. It's just he's at the end of his career, I think we're going to be talking about I think he is going to be the greatest of all time.
No, I agree. But
And
what the
it's
best
not going to be a
defenses
question.
yeah, but what the best defenses do and what that Seattle team did to that Broncos offense
They stopped the
is
weapons.
they exploit no, they exploited the greatest weakness. And what was the greatest weakness of that offense? They couldn't run the ball. So what did that force Seattle to do? We're going to force you to run the ball. We're going to play coverage. And even when Denver tried to run the ball, they couldn't run the ball. What did San Fran do to Kansas City's offense for 3 quarters? They exploited that offensive line. They got after them with the pass rushers, dared them to run the ball, and they couldn't do it.
The key
And it
is
was
they
just
did it for
one
3
play.
quarters.
But it was one play. It was one play that broke it open.
But
it was one mistake.
It was one play that
but-
Mahomes was able to create too, because he
Yes,
was able to
but the thing-
move around and
Right.
get free.
But that one play was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But what led up to that point was that offense couldn't move the ball when they needed to most for San Francisco. That defense did their job. They held them to 10 points. They had 10 points at one time. That was it. It was 24-10, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think you can rely on great defenses, but you need, and it always doesn't happen, as we saw in that Super Bowl, as we've seen in other Super Bowls, you need, if you're going to rely on a great defense, which can get it done, I think, against Patrick Mahomes, because they had it like the New York Giants had it. They had it like the Denver Broncos had it. They had the pass rushers to do it. They had the cover guys to do it. They had all the athleticism to stop that team, and they did for 3 quarters. However, on certain days, you just need that offense to show up. For San Francisco, they didn't. The 2015 Broncos, their offense did. The Giants team that needed their offense to show up against that, 2007 Patriots team, They showed up. No one thought, I didn't know how you could stop that 2007, I think it was the 7 Patriots team with Randy Moss and all those guys, Wes Welker. No one thought. I mean, that was like the birth of like that was no huddle on steroids. Just how fast they were able to move and just beat you down. I
You
think you
need
can do it by defense. I think you can. You just have to. You just have to have that offense
you
on the other
gotta
side show up. That's
you
what's
need
it.
an amazing catch on your offensive end. I don't want to rely on that. I don't want to have to rely on, oh, I hope my offense makes one play today. They need to
I
make
would
they
rather
need to,
rely on that than have to rely on my offense trying to keep up with that guy.
I'm not saying to keep up. I'm saying what San Fran had the opportunity to do was build up a much more balanced team. And you have to, again, you have to have the quarterback. You have to.
That's what it comes down to.
You're gonna need a great quarterback on the other end, on the other side of Mahomes to win. But not just a great quarterback, because that great quarterback's not going to be as good as Mahomes. Not even close. There's Mahomes, there's a big gap, and then there's Russell Wilson. And I love and Russell Wilson is a great quarterback, but he is nowhere near Patrick Mahomes. So you
I don't
need
know if there's a big gap. I
there's a
mean, there's a
big gap.
gap, but not a big gap.
There's a big gap.
Not
There's a big
that
gap.
big.
There's a big
Maybe
gap.
like 2 feet.
There's
It's not like 6 feet. It's like
there's
2
a
feet.
there's a massive gap. There's a big gap.
No, you don't get to compliment Patrick Mahomes today. No, you
There's a
wanted to
big gap.
trade him.
Hold,
You don't
whoa,
get
whoa,
to do
whoa, whoa,
this today.
Whoa, that's
You don't get to do this. So you keep Russell's name out of your mouth, and you keep Patrick's name out of your mouth.
hey,
You're getting Drew Lock. That's who you're getting.
Kansas City,
Kansas
Kansas City did it. They somehow got away with signing this dude to a 10-year cap-friendly $500 million deal. I don't know how that's possible, but they did it. That was not something that any of us expected them to do. We all expected him to get a 4 or 5 year deal worth 20, 30% of their cap.
Mm-hmm.
And he got less than 20. I don't know how that's freaking possible, but they did it. So that's if it was the other way and it was taking up 30% of their cap, I'd be all over and talking about that trade scenario. But they avoided it. So, but look,
Speaking of,
they're gonna need a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense with a top 5 quarterback to beat Mahomes. That's what it's gonna take. At the end of the day, that's what it's gonna take.
You need all that. I mean, maybe if we're playing a 7-game series, then yes. But if it's just one game, anybody can have a bad day on one game. One game.
We
That's
saw
all it
Mahomes.
is, one game.
No, we saw Mahomes have a bad day.
Well,
We
you
saw
gotta point the
Mahomes
finger at
have
Jimmy G.
we saw the Kansas City Chiefs have the worst 1.5 quarters of football possible. They were down 28-0. They blew them out. They didn't just come back and win 30-28. They came back and blew them out. They came back in less than a quarter, in 8 minutes. In 8 minutes, they caught up and took the lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Russell Wilson doesn't do that.
It's like the Warriors.
Tom Brady doesn't do that.
Here we go.
No, they don't. He's different.
He also has immense talent too around him.
He has 2 guys. He has 2 guys that are great. Yes,
the best tight end in the league, and you can argue the best wide receiver in the league.
They never did something like that.
Right, but I mean the guys that he had. Let's not discount who he has too and what they can do for him.
Well,
yes,
I know,
Patrick Mahomes
and they
is
still
great.
have those guys. That's what I'm saying. They're not.
Yeah, it's a collective, but it's led by Patrick Mahomes. I get you.
The only 2 teams I could see them knocking them off is Baltimore and Tampa Bay. But I mean, I don't know. Tampa Bay's defense, they've got to be at least top 10. But I'm thinking closer to 5, 6. If you can be the top 5 or 6 defense, and then Brady has to be Brady, and they got a chance. Baltimore has a chance because they have Lamar Jackson who can run the ball and he can do different things. He's got to be a better passer.
I don't trust Baltimore. I don't trust him.
Right.
I don't trust Lamar Jackson.
He's got to be a better passer. He has to prove that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what. So again, both teams have a glaring big issue. Tampa Bay's defense, we don't exactly know how good they're going to be. Shaq Barrett had a great year, but can he do it again? And then Baltimore, you got to try. Can Lamar Jackson be a great thrower. So
Right now, no.
and those are the
If we have
only
2
two
years of sample
teams.
size, say no.
Those are the only two teams.
Don't tell that to
So
Broncos country. Broncos country believes in Drew Lock to the fullest.
I
So
mean,
don't tell that to the Broncos
in like
fans.
2 years, maybe, and that's a massive maybe because at that point Vaughn is probably either gone or old.
Well,
And
both.
and you need Chubb to become the next Von Miller, and you need to add a couple more guys. That's a lot that you're asking for. Then on top of that, you need KJ Hamler to become Tyreek Hill. You need Jerry Jeudy to be great. You need Sutton to continue to be great. You need Noah Fant to become Travis Kelce, and you need Drew Lock to be a top 5 quarterback.
That's only like 7 what ifs that you need to happen.
That's a
That's
lot.
fine.
Yeah,
We
no,
can count on that.
maybe
count
2
on that.
years, maybe. And the only reason why I say 2 years is because at the end of those 2 years, you're gonna have to pay Drew Lock, and you're not getting away with signing Drew Lock to a 10-year, $500 million deal and spreading out the cap the way they did. You're not getting away with that. You're gonna have to sign him to 20 to 30% of your cap.
10 years, $500+ million, huge deal. Speaking of 10 years, though, tomorrow marks the 10-year anniversary of something huge, a historic moment in sports history. Whether you love the guy or you hate the guy, that's what your feelings were. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, on July 8th of 2010, LeBron James took his talents to South Beach. As a LeBron fan, I will readily admit at the time, I completely hated it. I hated the move. I was one of those who completely opposed it. And I really was hoping, I rooted so hard for the Dallas Mavericks in that first series. And they won. But then after, when I saw all the hate that LeBron got and all this just disrespect, I really changed my mind. So I was like, man, and that series really showed. Like, I knew LeBron was great, but watching him in that series, I was like, and just in that playoff run, I was like, man, this guy's like really, really great, like really great. And he's fun to watch. Like, how can you not enjoy watching him? So from that point on, after that Dallas series where he had his worst finals series ever, I decided, okay, yeah, I think I'm really gonna stake my flag into the LeBron James camp and be a fan. A huge moment in sports history, really. I remember it to this day, watching that whole program. Do you think he could have done it? Do you have a problem? Well, a lot of people still do, but do you think he should have done it a different way? Or do you think it was fine how he did it?
No, he should have done it a different way. But it's funny because for those who haven't watched it, go and watch the ESPN did it a couple weeks ago, or was it last weekend? It was called The Decision. It was a backstory of the decision, and it was from ESPN's point of view, media's point of view, and what happened. And then there's also LeBron, Maverick Carter, and their company. They did more than an athlete, and they talked about LeBron's main guys: Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, and the third guy. I can never remember his name, but he works more directly with the team.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But
Yeah,
anyways, it was really good, and they also went over the decision. This was not LeBron at all. Now LeBron went ahead with it, and he did it. But at the same time, it actually came from the media. The media actually pushed for it. People at ESPN, specifically Bill Simmons, and a couple others, pushed for it. They went to Maverick Carter, and they convinced Maverick Carter to do it. And Maverick Carter thought it was a good idea, sure. And so LeBron, in trusting his team and Maverick and the rest of the guys, he went forward and also went with it. So it's that from how, looking at how it actually happened and why it happened, I don't really blame LeBron for doing it. I don't think he really had a choice in the sense, because this had never happened before. Shaq was a big free agent, but it was a completely different time, what was that, 13, 14 years later with media. And media was driving everything. It was the beginning of Twitter. It was the beginning of, how today's media is currently. It was the very beginning. That's what launched everything. So at the end of the day, I don't think, if I were LeBron, I don't think I would do it differently, because even though it was a lot of hate towards him, it built their brand and it heightened their brand so big that now they're able to do what they're able to do. So I think they needed it. And yeah, it sucked for a season or two, but at the end of the day, it worked. And it did exactly what they wanted to do. It did in an opposite way, though, because you wanted to use that as a platform to heighten LeBron's popularity, right? Well, instead, it turned him into the biggest villain in sports. Well, the two things did the same thing. It brought all the attention to him. And it also made the return to Cleveland even bigger. So at the end of the day, it worked. And it did everything that they wanted it to do. And it gave all the power to him and all the power to players. And we talked about, I mentioned it earlier, and why I'm not sure why Mahomes did what he did in signing a 10-year deal. He could have signed a 3, 4, 5-year deal, and at the end of that deal, he had all the power to do whatever he wanted. He could have, we don't know. Kansas City could go in a complete crap hole, whatever, and the organization could fall apart, and Mahomes and them could completely see, have different point of views, and it could turn into a complete disaster, and Mahomes might want to leave, and now he can't, because he has to wait 10 years, right? So we don't know. But yeah, the decision, what it did was it gave all the players all the power. And that's why the NBA is as great as it is today. And all the player movement. And it still had player movement back then, but it wasn't like it is today. If LeBron doesn't do what he did, KD never goes to Golden State. He never goes to Brooklyn. Kyrie never wants out of Cleveland, and he probably stays in Cleveland and doesn't end up going to Boston and then Brooklyn. Melo doesn't go to New York. All those things, they don't happen. Anthony Davis doesn't go to Lakers. None of it happens if it's not for LeBron making that decision. So, and I think at the end of the day, it's better for the NBA. I do. It sucks that, Melo left Denver and all of that, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's better for the league. So, it was crazy though. You were upset. I was happy, because I knew how trash that Cleveland team was. That team was so bad. It was so bad. 2 years before he left, they played the Orlando Magic, and it's that game winner, that three that he hit, right, that we all remember. But he also averaged over 40 points per game, and 8 rebounds and 8 assists or something ridiculous. He averaged 43, 8, and 8, something like that. And they lost in 5, 6. That team was so bad. And I think by the time that they hit that Orlando or that Boston series, where they lost and they had to go up against the big three, Boston's big three, I think he was just done. He was over it. And, that's why I don't think he had a very good series, or at least a couple of games. He kind of just, I guess he kind of gave up. But, I mean, shoot, if I were him, I would have given up years before that. I mean, that team was so bad. They didn't bring anyone. They could have made a trade. They could have done something. And they didn't give him anyone. They gave him Shaq at 38 years old. That's fantastic.
The biggest name he got was
Cleveland.
Antoine Jameson. And instead of he was the second fiddle because he wanted Amari Stoudemire, and they couldn't get Amari Stoudemire, and it was Antoine Jameson that they had to settle for. No, that Cleveland team, and that was part of the reason, sure, that he left, is they couldn't help him. But he also had two great friends in Miami. The original deal was for him, Melo, and Wade to team up. obviously Melo's contract here threw things in a loop, and then he wanted to go to New York,
Mhm.
and that just kind of did everything in. And then Chris Bosh was the second choice there.
Yeah, but that would have they would have never teamed up in Cleveland, and there's a reason.
No, yeah, but the goal was to team up somewhere,
Right.
and that's what it ended up being, and it's history. I completely agree with everything you said, and I almost think this is so necessary for what LeBron James was going to be. He needed something to make him different. Everybody knew he was great, but he needed something to catapult him to, okay, yeah, he's different. His talent made him different, but this is what threw the mystique of LeBron James over the edge.
Mhm.
Colin Cowherd likes to say it all the time. The NBA is now mobile. It's a mobile league. Well, LeBron James made it that.
Right.
He made it okay to leave, and he was the one to really take the brunt of leaving his team to go, I guess, join forces. Even though, I mean, we saw it with the Celtics.
He's not the one that people always say that he created the big three. He did not
He
create the
didn't.
big three.
And if you look in the 80s, I mean, they had the
Yeah.
Lakers were
Right.
had multiple Hall of Famers. You had those Celtics teams with Bird and McHale and all the great players that they had, Parrish and all those
Right.
guys. I
But
mean, there was Hall of Famers on those teams.
but
So LeBron didn't create that.
he created the first player created big three. That's the difference.
Exactly.
The
He
Boston
made a different big three.
Right. Boston created the big three as
Via
a team,
trade.
via trade. LeBron, D Wade, Bosh, they created the first ever player created big three.
Exactly.
Which has now created much more. And now across the league, we're not seeing player created big threes. Guess what we're seeing? Player created duos all over the league. KD, Kyrie, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi, and Paul George. We're seeing it all over the league. And
Yeah, we've gotten away from the super teams.
Yeah.
That's kind of died down. But LeBron, like I was saying, he made it mobile, and he took the brunt of that. Now, that's not to say, and I had this argument with a friend a couple nights ago. He's a big Kevin Durant fan. He's what LeBron did was worse than what Kevin did. Well,
dear Lord,
Kevin left his team to go join the bully that beat him when he was up 3-1. Kevin left his team to join a team that won 70 plus games that didn't need him
They
to
broke the
win a
record.
championship. Yes, exactly. Kevin Durant, he had the easiest run
Yeah.
to what was it, two championships, three
Mhm.
championships that anybody's ever had. That's not to discount that Kevin Durant's a great player. He's going to go down as, I think he should go down as a top 5 NBA player of all time. I think he's arguably the greatest scorer of all time. I mean, 7 feet, can shoot, take it to the basket, can handle. He's one of the greatest threats offensively in the game ever. But that doesn't discount the fact that what he did was weak and that he took the easy way out, which at the end of the day, though, to argue that, you can't blame him, because what do we always, and we shouldn't do it, but what do we judge these players by? Championships. That's why LeBron left. He wanted championships. He knew he wasn't going to get that in Cleveland. The league has been full of great teams. That's teams. Michael needed Scotty. He needed Rodman. He needed great players.
Yeah, people conveniently
couldn't-
forget that Scotty was a top
Exactly.
5, top 10 player in the league at the time.
Exactly. LeBron needed great talent around him. He figured, if my team's not going to bring them here, I need to go somewhere else to find it. And that's what he did. And he ended up winning championships. And he's lived up and, if not exceeded, the expectations of his career. So looking back on the decision, I think it was, yeah, probably could have done it better. But you know what? At the end of the day, that's what made LeBron James part of his mystique. That's what built up his brand. So it was completely necessary. It was a moment in sports history that no one will ever forget. And, it's what allowed him to kind of put his fingerprints on the league and transcend it in a different way and lead it into a new generation of what we've seen.
Yeah. And
So-
and look, if he wanted, LeBron could have easily did what KD did. He could have joined Boston, or he could have joined LA and joined
Or
Kobe.
the Spurs.
Or the Spurs, yeah.
All these teams that beat him.
Right.
But he didn't do that. Orlando, he didn't go join those teams that bullied him. Well, I shouldn't say that OKC got bullied. Okay, they were up 3-1 and then they choked. So, but he went and joined a team. Was that the same year? That was a different year. The year that they were up 3-1. They weren't up 3-1.
No, it was the same year.
They were up 3-1
Yeah,
on that.
they were up
team?
on that 73 win team. It
So
was
yeah,
crazy.
he joined the team that didn't necessarily need him. So I mean, listen. At the end of the
Could
day,
you
what
imagine
LeBron
if
did.
LeBron joined Kobe in LA?
Oh, he would have gotten completely killed. I mean, he got completely killed for joining a team that he wanted to play around great players.
That
Sue
Miami
the
team
guy.
missed the playoffs the year before, I'm pretty sure.
They were in the playoffs, but they got bounced in the first round,
Oh,
and that's what also I
they
believe
weren't a
that was
very
that year.
good team.
No, they were not. And that's what also people forget. They think that LeBron joined this great team. No, he did not. With Dwayne Wade, yes, they were getting to the playoffs, but they were on the back end. Dwayne Wade was getting bounced in the first round. Chris Bosh wasn't doing anything on himself. So don't get it mistaken that when LeBron went there, he was still the best player on that team. Without LeBron, does Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh win those finals or go to that many finals? No. The answer is no. They don't do that. While they're both great players, is Chris Bosh a Hall of Famer on the borderline? Dwayne Wade, obviously a Hall of Famer, but do they do that? No. The reason they did it was LeBron James. So at the end of the day, I mean, was it a kind of a weird choice of projecting how you're going to leave or broadcasting how you're going to leave? Yes, but it led to what we have today. It changed the league. It made LeBron into part of what he is today. I think he learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was vilified for it, but he also went back to Cleveland and delivered a championship to a team that hadn't won in decades.
And in which he did a very different way. He announced a very different way.
Exactly. And he beat the bully. He beat that team.
Yeah.
And you can argue that he should have had multiple championships against that team if Kyrie didn't get hurt and Kelly Olynyk didn't try and snap out Kevin Love's arm in the first round.
They didn't even need Kevin Love in that first series. All they needed was Kyrie because they won game 1 because of Kyrie. Yeah, I remember, so going back to Cleveland, I remember that day because it was we were waiting for a bit for that one too, and we were on air at the time, and I was dead set he was going back to Cleveland, and I don't really think anyone really thought he was going to actually go back because he was leaving Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but in my mind it was Dwayne Wade was done. I mean, he was done. Chris Bosh is Chris Bosh, sure, but you don't stay in Miami to play with those guys.
Did Chris Bosh, was he dealing with the blood clot thing at that time? Okay.
No, that actually popped up either that season or the year after. So good timing on LeBron's part to leave. But yeah, no, I don't know. I remember, so I was working at UPS, and I was in the car with a couple of friends. We would carpool, and we would always talk about, basketball, whatever, the NBA, talk about the Heat, LeBron. They didn't like LeBron, and they still don't. And I told them, and this was after they had won the second championship. So this is that summer of 2013. Right? Is that 2013? Yeah, 2013. Mm-hmm. And I told them if they don't win the next season, if they don't three-peat, he's going back to Cleveland. And at that time, it's because they had just drafted Kyrie, and they were going to have presumably the number one, or another top 5 pick in my mind. And I was like, they are quietly building a good young team. And they at that point they had Anthony Bennett. So I was like,
woof.
Yeah, right.
Woof.
That was a bad. That whole draft class though is terrible. But they had the big thing was Kyrie, and I would always, and I still do, I pay attention a lot to the next 2 or 3 upcoming draft classes, and so that upcoming draft class was Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, and that was considered one of the better draft classes that we've seen in a while. It's been, it had been a while.
None of those guys have lived up to it.
No, none of them really lived up to it.
Jabari's unfortunate because he was injured.
He got injured, yeah.
Andrew Wiggins, I mean, people were coining him the next LeBron. And can we please stop doing this? When these new prospects, can we stop? They did it with Andrew Wiggins, Ben Simmons, Zion to an extent. Like, just please stop that, okay? That's what makes me hate these guys.
At that time, though, in the summer of that year, I'm like, they're going to have a top 5 pick. They're going to have a chance at Andrew Wiggins or Jabari Parker. And I forget who else. There was a couple more guys in that draft class. I can't remember. But it was the 2013 NBA draft. Because there was a couple more. But I was like, if they get one of those guys, they're going to be really, really good. And they're gonna have a good foundation. And so I was in my mind, I was like, if LeBron, and at that point too, Dwayne Wade had missed I think like 20 games at 2013 season, and LeBron had to carry them, and essentially LeBron won them that finals.
So it wasn't the 2013 class that was
Or
Andrew
2014, sorry,
Wiggins.
2014.
Yeah. But I googled the 2013 class,
That class is
and
trash.
well, I mean, they had Victor Oladipo, CJ McCollum in that class.
Yeah.
They also had Giannis Antetokounmpo, who SI completely butchered the spelling of Giannis's name. I'm looking; they spelled it Adetokundo. Completely just murdered his name there. But yeah, no, you had Giannis in that. You had Victor
Shoot, could you
Oladipo
imagine if
and CJ
Cleveland got
McCollum.
Giannis? Well, but see, Giannis in his first 3 seasons was not very good, so no
He
one
was
really
also
knew.
like, and Giannis was like, a toothpick. He was like 130
Yeah,
pounds.
right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always thought that it would be, and I just like the story of it, and I think LeBron liked the story of it too, of just going back, and going back home. But when that happened, we were doing the K-Met Sports Show, and it was just myself and Colton that day. You were gone, Anthony was gone. I don't think Hector was there at the time, so it was just myself and Colton, and we talked about it. But that was one of my favorite sports days ever, was him going back to Cleveland. Because one, I was right, but two, it was just the chance that he had to win in Cleveland. In my mind, if he and it's funny in their mind too. And if you watch that 2 hour special that Maverick and LeBron did, in their mind too, it was just win one. Just win one in Cleveland, and that equals whatever Jordan did. Like, you win one for Cleveland, and you break that drought. That is the ultimate thing that you could do, and that's before they knew what Golden State was. So the fact that they went and had to come back from 3-1 to beat that Golden State team upped it even more. So in their mind, and also in my mind, him winning that one in Cleveland trumps everything that Jordan did in Chicago. And so that was what LeBron.
I don't know about that. He three-peated twice in Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know if one championship could trump that.
What I'm saying is add that onto what he did in Miami and all that. So 3, but that one in my mind equals more than just one championship. It's 2 or 3, right? Beating that one. So, and also they should have won that first year. And it's probably one of the biggest what ifs, because if Kyrie doesn't get hurt in that first series that they played against Golden State, they would have won that series. Because you got to remember that was Golden State's first year in the finals. Steph's first year. Steph did not play well at all. They gave that finals MVP to Andre
Which he
Iguodala.
notoriously doesn't play well in the finals.
He played well in the second year when they were up 3-1. Steph played, I'm pretty sure he was averaging like 25 a game. I mean, he didn't play as well as he was in the regular season. But he was playing well. But yeah, if they would have won that first year, and they would have beaten them back to back, right? Do we think of Kevin Durant's move differently?
Well, does KD even leave at that point? Does he go to that team? Does Kevin stay?
Yes, because I think they would have needed him even more. They would have needed him to beat LeBron, which, I mean, they did, because,
no, they did. Just lost. I mean, Draymond had to go to the parking lot and put up the bat signal and signal Kevin Durant, please, we need your help. That's what he said. So, but, I mean, going back to the decision, I mean, I think we're both in agreement. It could have been done better, but it's what kind of adds to LeBron's legacy. But before we wrap, I'm looking back at this 2014 draft class, and oh my God. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is a solid player. He's not a bad player. He's a solid player. Obviously, he's not what everybody thought
He's
he
also
would
been
be.
in a very, very bad organization for the last 6 years.
Sure, but I mean, LeBron
Do
was
you
with
remember
Cleveland
what?
and he turned into a great player.
Well,
So I mean,
yes.
he's. I'm not saying he's
Yeah.
bad, but he's solid. But there's that. But if you look at that 2014 draft class, uh, Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, obviously, Joel Embiid was in that class.
Oh
Aaron
yeah.
Gordon
Okay.
was in that
Embiid, yeah.
class. Marcus Smart was in that class. Julius Randle was in that class. You go down, Zach Levine was in that class. Yusuf Nurkic, who for a while there was looking really good. Obviously, you had Gary Harris in that
Mm-hmm.
class. You had
Clint
the killer
Capella.
of my dreams, Rodney Hood, was in that class. Bogdan Bogdanovic. Anybody named Bogdanovic is a shooter
Yep.
automatically, so that's a great pick right there. Joe Harris, another shooter, was in that
Jeremy
class.
Grant was in that.
Jeremy Grant, Spencer Dinwiddie was in that class. But let's not forget the king of all kings, Nikola Jokic, was in that
Right.
class. Just sitting there, skinny, probably eating, maybe asleep, playing a Taco Bell commercial as he was being drafted. Nikola freaking Jokic in the 2014 class. Thank you, Tim Connolly. I will forever be indebted to your life and services. So, yeah, I mean that was a solid
That's
class
a
right
good
there.
class. It's all spread out though. Like that's the
Right.
thing. It's not like usually what you see in these drafts. I mean, there's maybe one or two guys late in the first or in the second. This one has everyone is just spread out. Like every other player is a complete like who was that guy? Type of player. But yeah,
Clint Capella was in that class too.
this was a good class. It's just that none of them were drafted in the top 10. Like you had Alfred
No, well,
Payton,
I mean, you had Joel.
Noah.
He was three.
Well, yeah, but you had like Jabari Parker hasn't done anything. Aaron Gordon,
No.
Dante Exum. Did he ever even play a game in the NBA?
You know, once he tore his ACL early, he just hasn't really caught on
Right.
at all.
Marcus Smart, I mean, he is solid, but Julius Randle, nah.
These
Nick's,
are solid contributors on teams.
yeah. Nick Stauskas, though, how
No,
many
no.
has he played it? So he's out of the league because he's only played 5 years. Noah Vonleh, I mean, he's been done the Nuggets for, or I think he got
Which is
cut or
funny. A
something.
lot of these names they somehow ended up on the Nuggets. Jordan McRae was here. Noah Vonleh.
Alfred Payton, Doug McDermott, Dario Saric. I mean, T.J. Warren, Adrian Payne. Who the heck is that? James Young, Tyler Ant. All these guys are picked in the top 20. Bruno Caboclo, Mitch McGarry. Yeah, no, this is Jordan Adams. Like, none of these guys I've never even, I mean, most of these guys have played 2 years. Like, Mitch McGarry played 2 years in the league. Jordan Adams played 2 years in the league. P.J. Harrison played 2 years in the league. C.J. Wilcox played 3. Josh Hustis played 3. So, like, DeAndre Daniels never played, apparently. A lot of these second-round guys never even played in the league. So, yeah, this draft is weird because it's spread out a lot.
There was also another Antetokounmpo. This time it was
it's
Thanasis Antetokounmpo, which I don't know which one that is, but I mean, there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
So
he's in the
but
league.
no, that was yeah. I think he has two currently in the league, other than Giannis. I think he has one was on the Lakers, and then I think the other one's still on the Knicks, or I think one is with him in Milwaukee now, as well.
That's Thanasis, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
One's with
Thanasis is in,
Okay.
and then one is in LA. That's why everyone thinks that. Oh, I have all the brothers in LA. Type of That's where that comes from.
Yeah, well, no one really cares about the other two. I suppose. With all due respect, I mean,
there's a
they
fourth
could be
one
great,
coming.
Right.
In the is it this upcoming draft? It might be this upcoming draft. And he's gonna be a top 15 pick. He's the best since Giannis. So
I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, Giannis is a freak of nature.
I think his name is Alex. Alex.
Thanasis, Giannis, Bill. Did his parents just give up after the first two?
He's let's see. He also might be the shortest. He's 6'7", 190. Yeah, so he's in this upcoming class.
Well, if we're going off of 2K builds, he's gonna have excellent speed. So there you go. Probably has a short wingspan though. So just saying.
NBA.
But that's going to do it for us today on the podcast. We thank you guys for tuning in, whether you watched via YouTube or you're finding us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and Radio Public. We thank you for tuning in. You can always follow us on Twitter for Brandon at Brandon_Stowell, for myself at Stephen Priest Jr. with a PHEN, not a VEN, not an AN. Don't disrespect me, all right? Get it right. Real quickly before we go, Mike Shanahan, he's going into the Broncos Ring of Fame, coached 14 years in Denver, going 138-86. Broncos won 8 of 13 playoff games. He coached them in here. Of course, 2 of those wins being Super Bowl wins. So congrats to Mike Shanahan. The ceremony will be in 2021, obviously, because we're going through a pandemic and we can't do it this year. So with all that said, for Brandon Stoll, I'm Stephen
Just
Priest
in case
Jr.
you guys forgot.
Right. Just in case, you forgot that we're living in literal hell right now. There's still a pandemic going on. Murder Bees, thankfully, have been like, you know what, we'll come back at a different time when you guys have everything figured out. Then we'll come back and try and kill you then. Okay. 2020 is really unloading the full clip on us. I mean, there's bubonic plague popping up in China. They also found a possible another swine flu. I mean, 2020 is really trying to remove us from the earth.
There's a couple cases of the West Nile virus too.
Sure, why not?
Watch
Bring
out
it
for
on.
Mosquitoes.
Murder bees, hornets. Soon we're gonna have literal sharknadoes coming. Wouldn't shock me one bit. But again, we thank you guys for listening. This has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We will catch you guys on Friday.